Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining in today's webinar, Positive Safety in Practice, Conversations with Industry Leaders. My name is Vanessa Teely. I'm the Head of Positive Safety here at Sentis, and we have a thrilling webinar for you today because I'm joined by 4 brilliant panellists. Before I introduce them, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of our land and recognise their connection to land, waters and community. I'm actually dialing in today from the Mornington Peninsula, a very beautiful area in Victoria. And so I want to acknowledge the Bunurong people who've been the custodians of this land for many thousands of years. And I pay respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Now, at Sentis, our mission is to change the lives of individuals and organisations for the better every day. And along with partnering with organisations to support their safety culture development, we also aim to do this by releasing our upcoming book on leading positive safety. As a part of this writing process, we've interviewed a number of safety professionals from various industries to incorporate some of their stories and experiences, putting positive safety into practice. So I'm delighted to have this conversation today with 4 people featured in our book so that they can share some of these brilliant insights with all of you today. So let me introduce you to our panel today. We have the wonderful Benny Mathews, who is the National Health and Safety Strategy and Risk Manager for Kmart and Target Group. So with a background in education and psychology, Benny brings a people-centred approach to health and safety. For more than 12 years working within the retail industry, Benny specialises in making the complex simple, bringing people together to find solutions and helping organisations shift their thinking toward more modern, meaningful and practical approaches to leading health and safety. Welcome, Benny. We have Robyn Heap, GM of People and Safety at Lawson Grains, bringing over 20 years experience in human resources and 8 years as GM of People and Safety for Lawson Grains. Robyn is dedicated to developing innovative HR and safety initiatives to address and solve business challenges and leading with people and wellbeing first principles. Welcome to you, Robyn. We have Craig Wise, who is a Senior Health and Safety Leader at Queensland Alumina Limited, with 21 years of experience at Yarwun and QAL in Gladstone, Queensland. Craig is dedicated to improving safety performance to ensure all workers return home safely from work to their PB5. Craig has a proven track record in implementing safety systems, excelling in influencing stakeholders to foster a safety-centric culture, and working alongside both senior management and the front line to co-create a culture where safety is owned by everyone. Welcome to Craig. And finally, we have Dr. Kirstine Hulse, GM at the NZ Product Accelerator. So Kirstine originally qualified as a chemical and materials engineer before completing a PhD in process optimization of aluminium smelters in Switzerland. She also has a master's in safety leadership from Griffith University. Kirstine has a broad experience in high risk and heavy manufacturing industries, including aluminium smelting, pulp and paper, oil refining, aviation, electricity and textiles, leading health and safety, people, sustainability, engineering and risk functions. She has a keen interest in innovation, transformation and building organisational capability using research-based science approach. Welcome to all of you. I will stop my share and so I can see your wonderful faces. Okay. So now that we have the formalities out of the way, I would love to get into this brilliant conversation today. And in our book, Leading Positive Safety, we talk about the 8 principles of positive safety. And one of those principles is to lead with vision. And Robyn, I want to bring you into the conversation here because I'm aware that the vision at Lawson Grains is centred around the well-being of your people and having a culture in which people are empowered and engaged and resilient. So I'd love to if you could discuss with us, Robyn, how do your leaders walk the talk and how do you ensure that that vision cascades down into all of the different functions of your business?
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Great question. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here today. Firstly, I'll cover, being a 2-stage question, I'll cover how our leaders walk the talk and then speak about how our vision cascades down. So our safety vision is wellbeing first, which is a simple statement. It's easy for us to message to all our people, as well as being easy to remember. To us, wellbeing is not just about wellness, but also incorporates safety, as we believe that our employees need to be well to be safe and safe to be well. So a whole person outlook. As a company, Lawson Grains walks the talk through the following 3 examples. I'll give you 3 examples around communication, empowerment, and from small things, big things grow. So communication, even though it takes time and sometimes years in the making, how we walk the talk is through building relationships and having conversations with consistent messaging, ensuring that we continually weave wellbeing first through our communications with the workforce. For example, we have a Lawson Grains conference. It's held every year, and we always take the opportunity to revisit our vision, our purpose, our values, etc. So overall, it takes a lot of messaging takes place, a lot of repetition, saying the same thing time and time again until it lands. So for us, it would be, saying the beginning of every harvest, because we're a large scale cropping business, the beginning of every harvest, we talk to our managers about working hours, for example, and just remaining focused, consistent, with our messaging and patience as well. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes the messages aren't quite sticking, which is why our executive team is committed to visiting our farms and sites so that we can spread our wellbeing first vision firsthand and face to face. It seems to land a lot better if it's in person. It is noted by managers and employees on site that the exec team is taking the time to visit. We have 13 sites spread across New South Wales and Western Australia, and some being quite remote. So it's time consuming at times, but definitely worth the effort. And I believe that demonstrating that we are people and safety focused shows through our commitment in getting our employees face to face in various forms 3 times a year as well. So we'll get like our whole team will fly everyone to spend 3 days during our conference and other times throughout the year. So, we try to walk the talk with regards to getting our people together, regardless of the time and the cost involved. And lastly, I'll just add the importance of holding our workforce to account. Fortunately, we're small enough that we hear, see, or receive feedback if someone isn't quite aligned or is working outside of our vision. So we'll speak to those managers or employees that the behaviour or attitude is stamped out pretty quick.
Amazing.
Secondly, just wanted to take you through empowerment. So we empower our managers by giving them what we call the license to operate, which means for them, they're able to run their farms as if they're their own. We give them the framework, we give them the support from our head office based here in Albury, but they're the ones that are making the decisions on the ground and making it all happen. This also includes being engaged, delivering on our wellbeing first vision, and taking on board our people before profit concept. For example, during harvest, which is our busiest time of year, any of our farm managers know that they can shut down harvest operations for as long as they think it's needed if they believe that their team is showing signs of fatigue and needs a break. So this comes with an absolute 100% backing from the executive team and our CEO. So the key to walking the talk is actually to do what we say we're going to do. Sometimes it's not easy, or you can fall into complacency. We talk about putting safety ahead of production. So we went ahead and developed fatigue management guidelines to be enacted during our peak seasons. So it actually meant over time a reduction in working hours for our employees and actually gave them more time off during peak periods. So initially there was a bit of pushback around, a reduction in hours. But then they could actually see some of it was from our farm managers thinking that they wouldn't, it would drag out harvest, but over time it actually proved opposite, that they did less hours but still got harvest off in the same period of time.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fascinating. It's just brilliant, having worked with your business and seeing how you operate. I can imagine there's a real that felt experience that people have, that seeing your leaders going out and committing to visiting often, and it has a real effect. And I think that's the thing about any company can have an inspiring vision on paper, but it's how does that actually how do we walk the talk and show that we really mean it from the very top? And that's something that we do in this book, is we actually talk about how we need to demonstrate these principles of positive safety right from a board and CEO level to senior executive leaders to the front line, because we can't just leave these things up to the frontline leaders and expect culture to change. So that's something I've reflected that Lawson Grains does really well.
Thanks, Vanessa. And then lastly, just touching on from what I guess term from small things, big things can grow. I've noticed that it's actually the really small things or what could be perceived as minor things that bubble away and can lead to negative outcomes. So by making small adjustments, it actually has quite a big impact on the workforce. So, for example, our CEO and exec team sending emails late at night or weekends, etc. Stamping that out years ago, so that might be that they're still working to some point, but not having that pressure on the workforce that they need to reply. The same around how we report on our harvest progress, because harvest is a very important time of the year for us, and everyone's very interested on how we're going, etc. So we normally send a weekly report that within each individual farm and how they're progressing. And we receive feedback that some of the farm managers actually feel the pressure from that, especially if they're not having a good season. So there might be, a lot of rain and they might be 20% through where other farms are 60% through. So they actually felt they were really feeling that pressure, even though it was indirect. So we then changed the way that we send out and report, so it's more at a regional level, so we don't focus on individual farms. And then the last year we purchased a transport business that had a family ownership, so that it was quite a different change in their mindset, where they were very focused on the trucks making a profit from each of their routes, where we're more interested in, yes, we're interested in that, but not at the cost of say the truck driver's fatigue, or we're happy to take a bit of a hit on some routes if it meant that a truck driver could get home to his family for the night rather than sleeping in his cab. So, it's quite a shift for that business and those key people. So closing, walking the talk, it does take a lot of time, it does take a lot of effort, but once it becomes part of your culture, it does become easier. But have found you can't really take your foot off the pedal.
Absolutely. Fantastic. That's wonderful, Robyn. Great reflections there.
Thanks. And then the second part of your question, Vanessa, around how the vision cascades to other functions of the business. A working example of what this looks like is what we've seen, the change that we've fostered over the last few years regarding, the notion of putting people ahead of profit or people ahead of production. So in the past, during seeding and harvest, some members of our exec team, like we would be monitoring employees' working hours, making sure that they're in line with our fatigue management guidelines. And in the past, sometimes we'd have to actually, come over the top and direct a farm manager to stand down or, take a break. Their team's been doing too many hours, etc., which is an industry standard for farming, unfortunately. But the pleasing things to see is that over time, we now see, like, our regional managers, that it's not really the exec team that are having to come in and do that. It's the regional managers now that are having the conversations with the farm managers and their teams. And it's actually even more pleasing to see that our farm managers themselves, just pull up their teams if needed, for 2 days or whatever it is, to rest without any, push or input from those above. So what's assisted this transition is initially having the executive team on the ground, visiting all sites like I mentioned before, but having conversations with managers around the importance of employees' wellbeing during peak periods. Also coaching leaders as we grow has been key. So now we're seeing our regional managers are out messaging and working with frontline managers rather than our exec team. So it is getting harder as we grow as a business. Like our workforce increased by 50% last year, which placed a lot of pressure and increased workload at our head office in particular. So again, demonstrating care, keeping all our employees' wellbeing in mind, increasing the size of our headcount at Albury office, using temps when appropriate to alleviate the workload. And secondly, it's interesting to note, because your question, Vanessa, was about cascading down, but we went through a whole of business sale in 2022, and we ended up having a new owners and a whole new board. So we actually had to manage up in terms of our safety vision around wellbeing first. So again, having to work with the board, messaging to the board about how we as a company or as an exec team and the CEO view people and safety, and really getting them, enthused and engaged and on board, or having our board on board with our views. So it's been a great journey, and they've message a lot to the business now around that they've fully on board with we've got their full backing if we need whatever resources in terms of safety and people that we need to see out our vision. So yeah, I think that's made a big difference as well, being able to share that with the rest of the business around, that we've got our full support of our board.
Yeah, what a great example there. I love it, because it's that is the importance of those very senior leaders and board members to empower the next leaders down to do their best work and put these things at the forefront, and so on. So that's really a very inspiring story there, Robyn. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa.
And when I conducted these interviews, there were lots of common themes that kept coming up with all the different people I spoke to. And one of those was the importance of rapport and creating strong relationships. So Benny, I want to go over to you. When you started previous role at Kmart, you noticed that there were some, let's say, some unhelpful frames around safety and the safety managers. You managed to overcome that and get to a point where there's a really strong connection between safety leaders and the store employees. Could you tell us a little bit about how you did that?
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. Kia ora, everyone. This is such a great question. It had me really reflecting on sort of the last 5 years, and gosh, just so much has changed in the world. But also at Kmart. Like it was, yeah, it's really cool to reflect on that. We're really fortunate that our store leaders are such talented and experienced leaders. And, I think about their day and they're managing budgets, high volumes of stock, truck deliveries, customer expectations, large teams. And so then when you had the safety team coming in, doing an audit, looking for everything that was wrong, and then giving them a list and then jumping on a plane and leaving, probably you could kind of see how that relationship became a bit fractured and probably wasn't the most healthiest. So probably in my first couple of months, I decided like we would stop that. We'd stop that activity and sort of change that up. And for my own understanding as well, like it wasn't giving me much insight into what are some of the challenges that we're facing or the pain points. So over those couple of months, just spent time on the front line with team members on checkouts, unloading trucks in the stock room, breaking down pallets, time with leaders to sort of, get to the bottom of what are those things that are making us or hurting our people, but also making it hard to deliver on safety. And some really great conversations. I think all the best stories are those that are on the front line. They have the best experiences and most funny stories, particularly when you've got customers involved. Every day is different. And that insight sort of identified some quick wins. There was challenges around gloves and the fitting of gloves and the lack of variety with our safety footwear, manual equipment, so manual pallet jacks our team were using, and the fatigue and stress on their body. And so hearing these sort of things, I sort of picked up, there's some really quick wins here. We just need better gloves, a better range of safety footwear. What does the investment look like for electric pallet jacks, not just for safety, but for efficiency in unloading trucks and moving pallets around? And so over time, like these small little quick wins that we managed to change in our stores, our store team started to see, actually the safety team are here to support, they're here to listen, they're here to help, and they're getting things done. And so that was a really cool feeling. And the communication started to become two-way. So it was less the safety team communicating out what the standards are, more to and fro. So the store team sharing ideas for innovation, concerns around a particular product that's landed that's really heavy or things like that, and just really good, healthy discussion. So that was a real win. But I think I'd be naive to think that just changing gloves and safety footwear and introducing electric pallet jacks would sort of make all that unrest or years of maybe discontent go away. So we engaged Sentis to come and run a 2-day workshop with our leaders and our national office team. And so I thought about running that session myself. I quite like that, but I wanted to be in the session as a participant. I wanted to be part of the conversation, and trying to wear both hats can be a little bit challenging. So Sentis came on board and we ran a 2-day workshop for all of our leaders across the organisation, as well as our national office team. So bringing everyone together, it was a forum to just get everything out in the open, the good, the bad, the ugly, what happened in the past. Let's just acknowledge that, bring that out into the open, and then come together united on a way to move forward. So what are the kind of behaviors or the things that we need to deliver on as a team? Who plays a part in that? That was probably a really pivotal moment when I reflected on this question. Probably at the time I didn't think about it as much, but now that I'm reflecting on it, probably a really pivotal moment for the Kmart New Zealand team's journey in health and safety. And I think that marked sort of a turning point for us in terms of how the safety team are seen in the organisation as well, and what we can offer, and how our role can really make an impact.
Wonderful. And I know it's you really put the work in, and you had to changing that relationship to a positive one is about ensuring that people feel heard, being out there, listening to them, making those small changes and quick wins. But it's really putting the time in to establish a strong relationship. How long does it take, do you think, to actually turn some of those relationships around? I know we've spoken about this in our interviews.
Yeah, great question. I think a big part of that is, like, obviously the store team had a bit of a red frame around the safety team, so some unhelpful attitudes, and perhaps we probably had a red frame around them too. Why do they never respond? Why do they never complete the forms that we're asking them to complete? So I think a big part of that is like reflecting on our own frames and how that's impacting our behaviors or how we engage with the store team. But I think, up front, like, it's definitely a big time investment to build relationships relationships and get to know people. But I think the sort of long-term benefit of that is huge and sort of almost hard to measure. Those conversations and those water cooler chats that we hear really what's going on, and really helps you understand sort of what are the challenges. You wouldn't get that from an audit report or just checking a few things on an inspection checklist. So yeah, definitely time consuming up front, but the long-term benefits are just hard to sort of quantify.
Wonderful. And so, what I'm hearing from Benny and from yourself, Robyn, it's putting that time in to really get to know people, demonstrate that you're listening, that you actually care about them, so they have that felt experience of care from their organisation. Craig, I want to move to you because you've reflected a similar success story around safety interactions. And safety interactions is definitely a topic that people can have some potential red frames around. I know that at QAL, your safety leaders dedicate time every day to getting out on the floor and creating that felt leadership and demonstrating active care. Can you tell me what you do there and what impact it's having?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, Vanessa, and good morning to everyone who's dialing in. So there's a number of things that it really comes back to basic first principles. So ultimately, safety interactions is about leaders spending time with their team in the field. And the first question we ask our leaders are, who are these interactions for? And making sure that it's very clear as part of the onboarding these leaders and the training that they receive. This time in the field is for the worker, for the team member, for the subject matter expert who's actually doing the work. And it literally comes back to, we need to catch them. Are we truly catching our people doing things well? So you see a lot of cultures where, whether it be a leader or a safety professional comes out into the field and it's seen as they hiding behind the I-beam and then jumping out and catching the people doing things wrong. You haven't got the right PPE, you haven't got all of that. We need to 180 that and turn it around and catch the people doing things well. And that's how you truly start that culture chain. It links directly back to Principle 7 in the book around getting hunting the good stuff. So really what it's about is setting your leaders up for success first, setting the example that you care about your people. So how are you going to empower your people to do the things right? And you can't do that by catching them doing things wrong. I'm not suggesting at all that there's no consequence, but what I'm suggesting, or it's all beer and skittles or wine and roses, but it's about setting them up for success at the start. So what we do here, all of our leaders go through what we call safety interaction training, and we teach them to look for the activator behavior and consequence of the behavior. So out in the field, and in addition to that, our workers know we're coming. This isn't something where we're catching up with people and they don't know we're there. As part of their toolboxes and onboarding in the morning, setting our people up for success for the shift ahead, we'll let them know, oh, by the way, Steve, I'm going to come out and we'll have a safety interaction today doing that job because I'm interested. And Steve knows I'm coming. It's not a surprise. So when I turn up to Steve, it's about observing what I'm seeing as I'm walking up. What's the behaviours I'm seeing? Is it a positive behaviour or is it a coaching opportunity? Either conversation, when I walk away, I should be asking myself, was that an impactful conversation for the worker? Regardless if I'm just giving them positive feedback on work done well, or I've seen an opportunity in how they've done that job to make it even better and correct that and get an agreement that that's the way we're going to do going forward. Either way, when I walk away, I should reflect on myself. Was it impactful for that person? And sometimes you don't get it right. We're all human. Sometimes we make errors, even when we're trying to do the right thing. We don't always get it right. And many times I've walked away from a conversation in good faith and I've challenged myself, was it impactful for that person? And I've actually gone back after the fact and apologised to the worker and called them up after smoke or what have you to say, listen, I don't think I got across what I was trying to get to. I care about you. Here's what I was trying to achieve. Did that come across? In good faith. So that was the key, catching people doing things right. And then if they're not doing them right, and then celebrating that. So tomorrow morning at the toolbox, we have a celebrate success section, and making sure that people are actually putting their hands up at that point and saying, well, I did this well, or I'm celebrating Steve because of this is what I've seen. He's actually created a more safe workplace and the ability for him to get back to his PB5 at the end of the shift because of that. So but even more than that, once you've actually empowered your leaders, set the expectation that they will spend 2, 3, 4 hours in the field that day. The reason they're there is not for them, it's for the team members. Having engaging conversations. How we actually double down on that is every week in each of our departments, and we've got 1,500 people on our industrial site. Each department will go get all of their leaders in the room, which may be, say 10, 15 leaders. They'll partner up, and that could be superintendents with supervisors or supervisors with supervisors. And one person goes out and completes the safety interaction with the person. Notice the language is not on, it's with, and go through their normal process of what's the behaviour, what's the activator, is there a consequence discussion happening there, was it positive or coaching? Once they've had that, they actually go away, and the other person that's with them coaches them on how that interaction was seen by them. Was it impactful? Did we go through activator, behaviour, consequence? Did it hit the high notes that we needed to? And then once that reflection in good faith, and that shows real maturity within a team, they all come back in the room together, and they go around the room. The person that completed the interaction talks to what it was, how it was it positive or coaching, what was the conversation around, what was the expectation, and was it impactful? And then the coach has the ability to give their 10 cents worth on that. So that is how you learn and coach so you've got now 10 people identifying what they've done well, what are the opportunities to improve, and the coach giving the ability to make change or just verify, yes, these are the things that we spoke about and was really impactful, or it wasn't impactful, and here's what we're going to do next time. So learn from each other. So you'll find a truly mature workforce when it comes to trying to lead a positive safety culture. You get to the point where supervisors can work together and give feedback in good faith. Superintendents, managers and managers. So the key thing is getting out there for the first principle. I care about my people. They know I'm coming. They know the only reason I'm there is to ensure they get home to their PB5 at the end of every day. And I'm not out there to have this sort of conversation. It's this conversation. I want to learn. You're the subject matter expert. Take me through what you're doing, and then I can ask some more pointed questions. What we've found over a period of years, that's created a culture where our team members expect their leaders to be there, and they're actually looking forward to it because they want to show them how they're doing and what they're doing and how they're doing it well. And then from that point on, you can have that. And the conversation at the end of the day, we talk about activator, behaviour, consequence. You don't even use those terms. You talk of the conversation is similar to how you would run into a person in Woolworths, that kind of conversation, but it has some mechanics behind it to ensure that we get an impactful outcome. And that's the key for us. I hope that answers the question, Vanessa.
I love it. And what I love about this and what you're doing there at QAL is, safety interactions is a process, and that process is aimed, to have some benefit in understanding what's going on and how we can improve safety. The thing is that safety interactions as a process can really backfire and worsen the culture around safety, or they can greatly improve and uplift it. It all depends on how you do it and the felt experience of that process. And, I just love how you talk about the openness of your leaders, that you're not just there to check up on people, you're walking away reflecting and asking yourself, have I been helpful here? Have I made the right impact? And I think that's a great takeaway for any leader to really spend some time reflecting on, what's the impact and the felt experience of my leadership here. Wonderful.
I think the key thing for that, Vanessa, is just to double back is the toolbox or the pre-start meeting, whatever you call it at the start of the shift, is about making sure you set that expectation. As your leader, I will be coming to see you. And that's for no other reason to make sure you're okay. And in a pure maturity perspective, if I go out there and I'm going out with the intent to have a safety interaction with the person and they're not doing any work yet, I'm not going to go and labour the safety interaction process because there's no behaviours to actually have a discussion around. So what I'll do is just engage with them in good faith. How's the wife and kids? How was the weekend? What did you get up to? Take me through it. So you don't have to continue down the road, even though you've planned it and set it up for success at the start. It's okay not to have the conversation when there's no behaviour that's been observed. That's true maturity. And what that tells the team member is, I care about you. And there could be no greater takeaway than that at the end of the day, I think.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Yeah, your example alludes to the importance of the social experience of safety. and leaders creating an environment that recognises good work and makes it safe to speak up. And, you know, the positive safety philosophy goes so far as to say that we actually need to redefine safety. You know, safety isn't just about hard hats and guardrails and processes and that physical element of safety, but it must incorporate the social and psychological experience of safety too. So, Kirstine, I want to move to you. One quote of yours that I've pulled out from the book, which I thought is fabulous, is that you said safety falls over when it's not integrated. So in your experience, positive safety happens when people are able to thrive in their roles and leaders have the capacity and capability to lead well. So can you expand a little on that, please, Kirstine?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Vanessa. So I think one of the things for me is that I really think of safety as it's a really good indicator of how things are going in your business, especially from a cultural perspective. And the role of leaders and relationships and that side of things, people, we've touched on that today already. It's super important because how leaders collaborate, how they engage with their teams, but also how they engage with other teams, and their awareness of their impact on other teams is really, really it's a really, really important part of it. And what you don't want is that safety is just delegated to the safety advisor or the safety coordinator, safety manager. You want them to be thinking about how it's actually a part of what they're doing, and it's a part of just the everyday practices that we have. And when you think about how you design processes within functions, it's relatively easy to streamline a process within your own function. And for someone else to streamline their process and their function. But the real crunchy bit is when you have to streamline between the two and when you have to get that collaboration happening across the two. And that takes you to a space where you really have to start understanding that other perspective and understand that impact that you're having on them and how you can actually have better outcomes for the business as a whole if you start to collaborate and engage together. And there's loads of examples of this in practice. And, you know, a real classic one is if you're bringing in a new piece of equipment or you're retrofitting a piece of equipment, and engineering team might deliver it really quickly for your production team, but they may not necessarily take into account all the safety features or the safety factors that you wanted to have put in there. Maybe there's machine guarding, maybe there was something in the automation when it was being upgraded that they could have, put some functional safety tests in that would happen automatically when you started up the equipment. Or maybe it was about the sustainability side, that there was some energy efficiency that could have been incorporated at the same time. So if your leaders are thinking about things in a more holistic way and understanding the impact of what they're doing and seeing how it can, there's multiple people interacting with this, and that the organisation is really an ecosystem. It's not something that exists in its own little area by itself. It's actually dependent on everything else in the business going really, really well. And so if you can start to think that way, you can start to just amplify the effect that you have as a business and amplify how easy it is for people. And I think it's good to focus on it from that side rather than when we miss it out, because you definitely notice when safety has been missed out and you have to go back and rework something. And it takes more time, and it's usually way more expensive, and often you don't have the same safety outcomes. It's just not as effective as if you thought about it all right from the start.
Yes.
And there's another example I can sort of give in that space too, if you just think from an HR perspective, just something as simple as your recruitment. You can, if part of your recruitment process is that you may be doing functional capacity assessments, and that's more than just a medical, that's more about designing for the work that someone is doing and making sure that you're setting someone up for that success that we've, talked about earlier today. And that they've got the capability to do that job, instead of putting someone in a role and then being surprised when 6 or 8 weeks later, especially in something that's a really physical role, that they may have an injury because they may not have had the right strength, or it just might not have been what was well suited to them. So you can start to integrate these processes, and it just makes it smoother for everyone, rather than it being just about what's done in one space. And that's why I think that safety can fall over if you haven't got that whole integration happening. It's just not as strong.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love thinking about the organisation as an ecosystem and looking at how we work well together across functions, across different teams, and setting people up for success in that way, looking at who does this role fit, and who's going to thrive in this role. I think that's really forward thinking. Wonderful. I wanted to open the floor to a question that we commonly get in the book, in our interviews. We talked a lot about how we measure success and what does positive safety look like. Everyone that I interviewed reflected that we're actually trying to move away from some of those lag indicators and TRIFR and things like that, because it doesn't give us a lot of useful information in terms of how to improve safety. But if not LTI data, then what is the question? So I want to open up this question to all of you. How do you measure positive safety? What does it look like in your organisation? Who would like to jump in first? Robyn, I'll go back to you.
Thanks, Vanessa. Yeah, it's a challenging area. I think for us, we are a fairly small organisation, people-wise, so we're able to, interact with a lot of people, spending a lot of time on sites, etc. So for us, it's like you mentioned before around the felt experience. So normally, you can feel. Or you can just feel the vibe, like you can feel and you can observe how your teams are interacting. So when you're on site, usually I will sit back and just sort of observe who's talking to who and what's being discussed and what body language is like, etc. So it's difficult because it's hard to articulate, and it's hard to be very black and white, and to data's easy, isn't it? But the gut instinct, it's a whole a different kettle of fish, so to speak. And we've been trying to use something that we've been looking at trying to introduce into the company is around telling and sharing stories. So finding positive safety stories and then blending them into reports or conversations, or when we're sending out, say, incident reports so that other sites can see what's been going on. We can share those stories as well, and then just keep building on those stories so that people understand and can visualize, rather than just, a LTI score of 0 is the target. So yeah, I guess that's something that we've been trying to introduce.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Who else would like to chip in on this one? How do you measure positive safety? What does it look like?
Vanessa, I'll dive in, if that's okay, very quickly. I think one of the key things we do here with all RIA sites is we have a program called Safety Maturity Model. And what that does is based on leadership engagement, risk management, work planning, and learning communication. There's a matrix built on how mature a business is based on each of those elements. So the proactive approach we take with that, especially on my side, is myself and my safety team do a inch wide, mile deep on each of our departments every week. It's an internal health check. So it gets it's not just about doing a desktop on how well those systems have been embedded. We go to the toolboxes, we go and attend and review their leadership in field practices based on the matrix. The key thing for all of that is actually getting the safety team out in front of your team members for no other reason than to learn how things are going and what we can do to help you. So yes, we're doing a desktop approach. We're doing an assessment on how it's been applied in that department and spending time in the field. But a lot of the time and depending on what organisation you come from, the safety team can be seen as the policeman, or you only ever see the safety team when it's hit the fan and they're here for an investigation or an audit or something like that. What I challenge every company to do is, how do you utilise your OHS team better? Get them out in front of the team members in good faith. Get them out there for no other reason than to build a relationship than to, yes, I'm doing an assessment and here's some broad criteria, but I just want to have a conversation with you as the leader. Tell me how you're spending your time in the field with your team. Yeah, tell me about your team members. What do they do? What are their interests? What are their passions outside of work? That will truly get a gauge on how well you understand, or that leader in that department cares about their team. Do they understand what drives that person's behaviour? The children to sport, he loves go watching them play football on the weekend, and this and this and this. So that's one of the proactive things we do, and that we do rank it. We score it at the end of the day, but it's not an all injury frequency rate or lost time injury frequency rate, that type of thing. It's about how well those systems are being embedded and how proactive the leaders understand their team members and how they're ensuring that those systems are embedded well, and then they can get home safely to their PB5.
Yeah, interesting. And so I'm detecting common themes here around it's judging that engagement and that connection, those cultural sort of indicators. Interesting.
Absolutely.
Now, I will move to, I'm just watching the time here. I want to move to Kirstine to tell us a little story here, because I've reflected on the fact that moving toward positive safety is a bit of a shift away from the way that things are commonly done. And it means it requires us to get out of the this is the way it's always been mindset. So we need to be pretty open-minded and curious. And when we discussed this, Kirstine, you told me a fantastic little story here that we wove into the book. Would you mind telling it for us now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a little bit of a pivotal moment for me in terms of just like one of those aha moments that you have when you're working and when you reflect on it later, you think of actually how you can apply it in the future. And so when I was in my early part of my career, and I was in Africa, and I had only been there a few days, like I'd been there in the country less than a week, and on my first day, I was there in the manufacturing smelter as a process superintendent, and the role that I had required me to look across the board and look at how we were doing a couple of things. And I decided that one of the ways that I was going to do this is I was going to take a couple of the key team members out and try and understand their perspectives. And so I took the production supervisor and the maintenance supervisor, and I got them to meet me in the offices, and we were going to walk out into the plant. And, these plants, some of these plants are enormous, right? So you're walking down these big big wide hallways, if you like, these big corridors, and they have these big double doors. And we get to these double doors, and the production supervisor, he races through the door and holds it open after he's gone through it. And then the maintenance supervisor, he starts to, he's got a different perspective on this door, and he opens the door and, gestures for me to go through. And then they start having this argument about how this door, who should be going through the door first and who should be holding it. And, it's my first day, and I've only met these guys a couple of hours ago. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm actually okay with holding that door open myself. There's a completely different perspective here. And what we got to with that was that each of these guys is coming from a place that was deep in from their cultural values and, the different lens that they put over looking at the door. And, the production supervisor, he was Zulu, and from his perspective, he wanted to go through the door first. That was just part of his culture. And the maintenance soup, he was Afrikaans, and he felt that he should be holding the door open for me. And it's only when you start to understand that actually, they're coming from different places, but actually neither of them are wrong. In fact, neither of the three of us were wrong. We just had a perspective that was based around what was important to us from a cultural perspective, and those norms about what we were used to doing and how we were used to behaving. And so you can have three people who have polar opposite sort of opinions on things, and you're all right. You're all correct. And so there's a lot of grey around this, and we should seek to understand more and seek that curiosity to actually understand why someone is doing something the way they are, rather than sort of going to the space of a right and wrong. It's actually, you can have a different opinion and both be right, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, leading with curiosity, there's so much in that. And I think whether you're doing incident investigations or safety interactions, or even, you know, if a change project isn't going as planned, it's really seeking to understand and having the generosity to recognize that people are probably doing the best they can from where they are, or that there's a good reason why they're doing what they're doing. I think there's such a lot of learning in that. So thank you, Kirstine. Now, I do want to get to some questions in a moment. Share my screen. Before I do that, there are a couple of little things I want to share with you. Now, you can get your hands on our brand new book very soon. It is just about to go to print, so it will take a number of weeks, but you can pre-order right now. And as a little thank you for those of you on the call, there will be a little discount code for you hitting your inbox. So please do look out for that. I'd really love to. I'm very excited about the fact that people are actually going to be reading this book all over the world. So it's very exciting. The other thing to mention is that we have actually just launched a brand new positive safety community. So this is an online space that incorporates a learning function. So there's a lot of free and some paid resources, courses, toolkits, all sorts of things that will be available in our community. But there's also that live community function, which will incorporate live meetups and forums and discussions and challenges to get you actually doing the doing, all sorts of things. So it's actually free to sign up to our community, and we would love to see you in there. And in fact, if we don't get to all of our questions today, we're going to invite you into the community, because this is where we will keep that conversation going. Okay, so Q&A. I'll stop sharing. Hang on, I'm a bit discombobulated. Where's my little thing gone? My little bar to stop sharing has disappeared. I don't know where it's gone. Okay, that's all right. We'll just roll with it, won't we? Okay, so we have some fantastic questions that have been submitted. The first one, Benny, I want to throw this one to you. So Jane submitted a question ahead of this webinar asking, how do I get more senior leadership buy-in to commit to health and safety and not just give lip service? This is something we always hear. How do I get the people in the positions with the power to make stuff happen? How do I get this to really be important to them? I think you've had some experience with that, Benny.
Yeah, such a great question. I think hopefully, I think the answers prior to this might have helped a little bit, but I think, you know, relationships, big thing for me, and a clear theme across the group. And I think that's a really good place to start. So I know in the past where we've tried to sort of issue initiatives or activities or things for senior leaders to do, they probably haven't landed as well as we would have liked them to have done. And I think the learning from that for us was that perhaps rather than just sending things out for people to do, actually do it with them. So those senior leaders, invite them to the critical risk review control session, or the learning team, or the workshop on that, ask them to come and open that session, or contribute or be a participant in that. And that I found that that's a really good way to get sort of senior leaders involved in the conversation, but also in the understanding of what we're looking at, what some of the challenges are, hearing firsthand from frontline team members as well, or employees, around what are some of those challenges. Yeah, I think the risk where you just issue like a safety walk or something like that for senior leaders to do, I think, you know, there's probably a couple of examples where those probably haven't probably done more damage than they have been helpful. And then I think also just, yeah, like, I guess it depends on the position of where those leaders are at in the organization. So you're talking about the board level, or you're talking about sort of zone managers, because obviously that sort of changes things. But I found just spending time with them and I think for me personally, trying to find like the positives in their leadership. So what are the things that they're really good at? Where can I use their skills or experience to help us in the safety space? And where can I invite them in to contribute? Because I think when someone can actually contribute to something and use their skills, they can offer a whole lot more as well.
Wonderful. And Craig, do you have anything to say on that? Because I know you're fantastic at engaging stakeholders and sort of getting alignment between frontline and senior leaders. Anything you want to say on buy-in from the important people?
Well, there's many things, and Ben's basically touched on it all, but there's a couple of things around, do they care about their people? And if they do, it's an easy sell then. So it's about getting getting them out in front of the team members. Like I said before, for no other reason than just to build the relationships. Get the team members to understand that these are people as well. Yes, they've got some authority, but the key thing is for the leader. Get out, build a relationship, be there for no other reason than to learn about your people. What's working well? What do they enjoy about coming to work? Then what are the challenges they have? And you've got to be mindful that you can't set it up as a grenade throwing situation. But if you set up a one-on-one conversation at the water cooler as a chat or something like that, you can very, very quickly, and I use this practice if I've moved into a new site, I go out there and just build relationships with the team members, spend 6 months with a superintendent or manager role that I'm in, spend six months just going out, attending toolboxes for no other reason, just to listen to what's being talked about, listen to what people are talking about in the crib rooms and building that relationship. If you're doing that at a senior leadership level, you'll eventually learn what drives their behaviour, and then you can actually start putting in those little nuggets of gold for people to see that you actually care about them, and things will change over a period of time. But it's no quick fix, of course.
Wonderful. Okay, Robyn, I'll ask you this question, and then maybe Kirstine, I'll get you to chime in on this one as well. Alexander has asked, what good ideas or visions have you seen that inspire change in the psychosocial and wellbeing space for clients?
Thanks, Vanessa. For us, an example would be with our wellbeing program called Safe and Well at Lawson Grains. We actually, because we're so spread out across the country, we actually have set up Safe and Well reps. So each farm or region has a rep, and they're the safety team here in Albury, that's their go-to. So we actually use them to consult with their teams. So we find that's been really effective, that we're not just implementing new initiatives within the program that we think is going to land. It's actually going through the Safe and Well reps, and then they're going back, consulting with their team, and then feeding it back through to the people team here in Albury. So I found that very effective, and we're making sure that our wellbeing program is hitting the mark, that it's totally customised, that it's not just a set and forget, and we're tapping in continually through the Safe and Well reps, making sure that they're also the eyes and ears of the wellbeing of their team. And that's setting them up as a go-to for the team members as well. So they could go to their Safe and Well rep to say, I don't know, if they've got a personal issue, well, then the rep would then direct them to our EAP program, or direct them to contact a WHS coordinator, or so they're directing traffic. They're not solving problems, but giving them, the tools and the knowledge, so that then they can direct employees on where to access help, etc.
Amazing. And Kirstine, just before we finish in a moment, there's a great question from Deirdre in South Africa. She's asking, how does one manage psychological safety and accountability?
Yeah, so I think this one here starts with, it actually starts with the whole leadership side of things, and how you view the relationships and the strength of the relationships. Because one of the really important things from that psychological safety side of things is that if you haven't got a good relationship with people, they're not going to tell you exactly how it is out there. So you need to develop that trust, and you need to also have some really good awareness. Robyn talked earlier about you can feel culture. You really can feel culture. And so if you take the time to have that that awareness of how you as leaders impact the team, and then just being very aware about where people are at and engaging in those conversations, with time you'll build the trust. And when you start to build the trust, then you start to understand what's actually happening, because people will open up a little bit more, and you can also ask more questions. You know, I think a really important part of this is actually really being very curious about asking the questions and understanding where it's hard for people, and so that you can start to really think about what that workplace design is. And it's the people who are doing the work that are often going to be able to tell you the ways that things could be changed to make it easier, to make it more effective, to make it more efficient, something, you know, anything in that space. So I think it does really start with the relationships, that leadership side of things, in particular that awareness side of things. And then once you get to that, then you can start thinking about agency and giving people the tools and the confidence to actually take control of things.
Wonderful. Yep. And I would reflect the same thing. You know, my 2 cents is that the physical, social and psychological experience of safety is everybody's responsibility in the organisation. So thank you so much. We are at time, or 1 minute over. Thank you so much for your participation in this discussion. To my panelists, you've been absolutely wonderful. I hope you've enjoyed listening along, the participants of this webinar. And please do hop into our community, and we'll keep the conversation going there. Thanks so much. Have a great day.